Welcome into Emerald and Lilywhite. This is episode 24. We're back to talk about another win. Nice to say that's two in a row if you're counting. Spurs come out on top 4-1 in a big Premier League matchup against Aston Villa. Lots to talk about. Before we get into it, introduce in the panel quick. With me as always, co-host Max at Going Limbs. Max, what's up, man?
So, yeah, I'm glad to be back. I think the first show that I haven't been on, for City. So yeah, glad to be back. Was able to watch the Spurs game on my phone because me and Chang had a soccer tournament and we had regionals in Oregon this weekend. So, there was a lot of soccer happening, but luckily it wasn't too early because of daylight savings. So that was pretty nice. So yeah, glad to be back and talking about another win. Because last time I was on, we were talking about Crystal Palace. So
yeah, for sure. No, yeah, glad to have you back. Obviously, big win to talk about. We'll give you a second to go on about Man City as well. Give you a chance to do that before we wrap today. With Max and I also, Robbie at Robbie_Light. Robbie, how's it going?
Good. Yeah, I watched this weekend's game from the hotel room bed on Sunday morning. So that was nice. Yeah, no, it was a great game. I'm sure we're getting into it later, but yeah, tale of two halves for sure. But it was a good one.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, we're here to cover all of it. Before we get into Villa, though, like I said, Max, just take a second to talk about Man City, man. I'm sure there's a couple of things you want to get off your chest before we dive into Villa.
Yeah, for City, what a win. I think that Pap Sarr, absolute worldy there in the second, or for the second goal. I think, of course, you guys covered that. Kulusevski continued to show that he's like a top 10 player in the world right now on form. I feel comfortable saying that. I've been saying that to my friends. If you don't watch Spurs, you don't understand it, but he's actually doing stuff that I haven't seen from a Tottenham player in a long time, if ever, right now. So he continued that against Villa, and then just shout out Dragusin. Great performance against City. I'm sure we'll talk about him in regards to this game. Shout out to Ben Davies. Again, both games, great performances from him. And just like two wins that were just overall like good team wins. Everyone contributing, our subs contributing to both those games, and even players stepping up like Timo Werner. I know people probably thought I would gloss over that one, but he did score, and he also missed like 5 of those chances. But he scored the one that mattered. So shout out to him. And yeah, I thought just great win and great overall performance midweek. And now we have United at home. I'm sure you guys, I haven't watched the full episode of Wednesday's show. I'm still working through it, but I watched the first half. So I don't know if you guys got to talk about the draw. I'm sure you did later on, but that should be a really fun game with Amorim at the wheel now. And then lastly, I just wanted to say now the 3 candidates that Spurs were really going after when we hired Ange, Slot, Amorim, they're all managing at Big Six clubs. So shout out to Daniel for that talent ID there, because clearly like those were 3 like really good candidates. Obviously yet to see what Amorim does, but Liverpool is top of the league, so it looks like it was like a win-win scenario whichever way we went there. So
yeah, no doubt. Yeah, great draw. I think United at home. When you look up and down the lineup, obviously they're going to have a new manager bounce or whatever at that point.
It might be over by then.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I expect them to be better than they were under Ten Hag pretty quickly. But yeah, I think it's a good draw for Spurs. But yeah, can't agree more with everything you said. A wonderful win. Let's talk about Aston Villa, though. Obviously, that's really what we're here to do today. Again, Spurs come out and, as Robbie said, bit of a tale of two halves. Come out super strong in the second half. End up winning 4-1. Lineup was fairly predictable, I think. Porro's at right back. It was Romero at center back with Dragusin. And then Udogie at left back. Midfield was the repeat of Bentancur, Sarr, and Kulusevski. Then up top, it was Son, Solanke, and Brendan Johnson. That front three surely picks itself. But did anything stand out to you, Robbie, when you saw that lineup post?
Not really, but I know I can't remember which one. I think it was one of you two that made a comment in a podcast, a couple ago, where you were mentioning that we felt like Basuma and Sarr were like this married couple almost. And I think the last few games it's been Bentancur and Sarr. And I think that's just been interesting. But yeah, no, I think he's been awesome. A lot of stuff that really didn't show up on the stat sheet really for him in this game, because I don't think he got any assists or any actual goals, but there was a lot of slow-mo replays of like great passes he made, or I think actually on both goals, I feel like he was maybe the one that like caused the turnover. I think at least, or two of the Solanke goals, I think he like caused the turnover that led to the goal. I know he was at least one of them, but yeah, he did. He just was grinding out a lot of stuff and did a lot of stuff that didn't show up on the stat sheet. But yeah, he was definitely a big part of it. And Kulusevski, I think, got some of the assists as well. So the midfield was, I think, the story of the game.
Yeah, I think that midfield is worth double clicking on. It does, again, 2 matches in a row, that group starts together, does a pretty good job, in my opinion. I think Bentancur maybe gives Sarr a little bit more just comfortability to make more of an impact. I think Bentancur is a little bit stronger in a pivot by himself than why am I drawing a massive blank here?
Basuma?
And Basuma is. Thank you. But the biggest thing that I see with Sarr and Bentancur is I think Bentancur reacts to Sarr, whereas Sarr has to react to Basuma a little bit more. I think Bentancur just has that maturity that comes with understanding what's best for the entire midfield, and that's giving Sarr license to roam and again make an impact in the way that he feels is best suited to do that. And I think Bentancur really covers for him. And then of course Kulusevski is going to do his thing. Max, anything on the midfield you want to talk about, or the lineup in general?
Yeah, like that was a great point. Robbie brought up that Scott had made a couple previous episodes about like which kind of pairings were fitting together and how they like to play with each other. And I think that a budding pairing now, as I know we all were a fan of Madison and Kulu, but Madison and Sarr right now, or not Madison, Kulu and Sarr right now is looking like the perfect balance in the midfield. I think we were a lot more susceptible to the counterattack when Madison was in there. And it was for games that we really were confident that we were going to dominate in, right? So now that we've seen Sarr and Kulu in 2 games where we're not confident that we're going to dominate, the sides are fairly equal. Our squad was inferior in the City game, even though they played like a lesser team, so to speak. But it really brings us like a great balance, and I think it's perfect for these big games. And with Sarr finding the form that he's in right now, and obviously Kulu doing what he does, it seems like the left side, right side thing that they do is perfect because of the work rates that those two put in. And it really gives us like a different dynamic from when Madison is in the squad. And I know we're going to touch on this later, but that might be to Madison's chagrin or whatever. But it's working right now, and I'm loving it. As someone who was notably and admittedly a Pap Sarr skeptic at the beginning of this season, I know Chang and I both were like, he might be our biggest disappointment if he kind of gets lost in the shuffle of the midfield. That was also with the Lucas Bergvall hype off the charts, who's kind of been the odd one out at this point. So yeah, Sarr has been incredible. And I think that Kulu Sarr, I guess 8 dueling 8s or 10 and 8, whatever you want to call it, is absolutely magnificent right now.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It's also interesting you mention Lucas Bergvall. We haven't seen him get minutes in the last 2 matches, if I'm not mistaken. he's 18 years old, so this is in no way, shape, or form an alarm bell, right?
Yeah.
But maybe my question is, do we think that Ange maybe just saw that he needed to slow things down a little bit and let Bergvall settle in more before we keep throwing him to the wolves? And I'll kick back to whoever,
Yeah, I think so. I think like really the thing is like at the start before Europa started, Lucas was like making an appearance almost every Premier League match, at least off the bench. And now as Europa has kicked on, we've kind of seen less and less of him in the league and in the bigger matches, to be honest. So I think if he starts finding a little bit more form in Europa, which we haven't seen, and I'm sure he would tell us that as well, that he needs to do better in those games because that's a level where he should be thriving. I think he'll get back into the fold a bit more. And yeah, just patience. We got a little bit ahead of ourselves in the preseason with, Bergvall is like the prince. Like we're crowning him. We crowned him a little bit too early. And then it actually happened to be Archie Gray. That's the one that's like, wow, jumping off the page for an 18-year-old at this point in the season. But I'm sure it'll come. He's too talented. We've seen the flashes of talent that it'll come, and he just is gaining experience from just being amongst the squad at all throughout this whole season. So I'm just excited to see what he does with the rest of the Europa League matches. And I'm sure we'll talk lineup for Galatasaray, and I'm sure we all expect to see him in there.
Yeah, no doubt. The other person that kind of fits that mold right now is Mikey Moore. Probably just worth mentioning. It's probably a very similar situation. I think he probably had to play against Palace out of necessity, and then obviously played the Thursday prior to that and played really well in the Europa League, but doesn't make an impact against City by any means, and same with yesterday, right? So I think it's Ange slowing things down, pausing a little bit. I will talk about him during Galatasaray because I expect him to feature prominently, if not start on Thursday. But another one that we didn't see active in the last two matches. So yeah, just interesting thing to look at. I also think that if we switch to the back quick, I thought Dragusin had a good game. I thought he played well and showed that he's continuing to bet into the system yesterday. Up top too, I think Johnson gets a goal, which we'll get to, but it was nice to see Sonny back. Dom had a fantastic game again, which we'll get to. But yeah, there's players, from the front to the back that are really cementing themselves as guys who are going to be some of the first on the team sheet and guys that Ange can really depend on to get bigger results. So it's nice to see. Let's talk about Solanke for a second, and I'll come to you, Robbie. 2 goals, really both well taken and deserved goals. We couple that with his work rate and everything he does to the press and the way that he's transformed the way that we attack the opponent, you could say, from the tip of the spear. Couldn't be happier for the guy. But talk about Solanke for a second.
Yeah, no, I think, even the Brennan goal, he was like half a toe away from being the guy that got his foot on that one. I think like it was that he was running down the line too, but it made its way to Brennan. And yeah, I think I'm trying to remember. I know, yeah, the Richarlison one was like a fast break goal, and then his first one was kind of like a chip, and that was the one where this is the reason why VAR is on the table now. Of like if he was offside, it would have been by like the bone of his shoulder or things like that, where it's just like, can we not watch this in slow motion 600 times and be like, okay, maybe he's offside. No one had a problem with it when it happened live, except for obviously the Villa defenders. They were claiming he was offside, but that was one of those goals where I was in my head, I was like, this is going to get taken off. And like Richarlison's had a bunch of goals where it was like his nose or, like just things like that, where it's like, why do we slow this down so much and review it? At this point, I'm still not even clear what body part is meant to be measured, for onside or not. But yeah, thankfully he was onside for that. But yeah, I think it's finally just a result of him. He's always been in the right position. The balls are just getting there now, because both of those goals were just examples of him being perfectly positioned. Being the first one was kind of like a pass behind the defenders where he was breaking at the right time, and then the other one was a fast break where Richarlison squared it in. So just and his placement on that one, they showed that in slow motion where he obviously like side footed the second one in, and it was his left foot, and he basically swept it into the goal. But we've seen players on this team and in the Premier League shoot it over the goal, or have it hit the side of your foot and go 10 feet in the air instead of going into the goal. So it's not necessarily easy to do that. Just finally a result of him always being in the right place. Not always. He's had a few moments, but mostly being in the right place, and they're just hopefully starting to just fall in the goal now moving forward.
Yeah, I completely agree. And ultimately, when it comes to the striker position, you just kind of want to be in the right place at the right time, and he seems to have figured that out really well. So I couldn't be happier for Solanke. He deserves it. Like I said, he's done so much off the ball for us, and that doesn't always get recognized. I believe that it has been recognized as of late amongst most Spurs fans, right? But for him to get the goals is huge. Brennan also bags a goal. I don't think there's a ton to talk about there. Obviously, very happy for Brennan. It's a very Brennan Johnson-esque goal, right? What he does best, find himself open at the back post and slot it home. And kind of like you're saying about Solanke, not an easy thing to do. I'm not making light of that or imposing that it's light work to do what he does, but he finds himself wide open off a ball from Sonny that I'll double click on as well. Beautiful ball from Sonny, and it's exactly what you'd expect from you're just, for lack of a better word, killer in the final or in the opposition box in the final third in Sonny. So a great ball from him. But Max, I want to talk about the fourth goal, and that's the Madison free kick. That thing was an absolute beauty. Just go ahead. No question. Talk about the Madison goal.
Yeah, dude, the Madison goal, absolutely beautiful. Just takes it quickly in that whippage to get that. It's the same type of ball trajectory that we saw Sarr do against City, and it's pretty unstoppable. And just like catching him off guard a little bit, Emi Martinez off guard. I don't know, maybe he gets a hand to it if he's a little bit more ready. But yeah. And then actually in our game against Utah, our UW game against Utah, we had the same situation happen against us where our keeper was kind of getting set. It was a little bit farther out. Maybe he thought he was going to claim the cross, but he kind of left that open side of the goal a little bit too open, and then he just like whips it near post and sneaks in. So that was unfortunate to just watch that Madison do that and then watch that happen against us. Luckily, still got the win in that game, so that was all good. But yeah, shout out to Matters for the free kick. Free kicks aren't easy. And yeah, just to toot my own horn a little bit, I did score an absolute belter of a free kick against Utah as well over the weekend. And I just want to also add that Alex Cheng cooked their entire team and got fouled in the box and then converted his penalty. So we both ended up bagging in the same game, which is pretty lit. We're putting it on for Seattle Spurs on and off the pitch. So yeah.
No doubt. Well done, boys. Glad to hear it. But I couldn't agree more. Madison, not only does he execute in a big moment, he came on late, and we're going to talk about the
82nd minute
second too. But he comes on late and finds a way to make the most of the 8 minutes plus stoppage time that he's given, which isn't an easy thing to do, especially if you're a guy like Madison who, assumably, isn't thrilled with the fact that he's not starting, right? He's one of our better players and a senior leader and a captain. So it's got to be tough for him mentally and to step up and bag that goal. Yeah, I couldn't say enough about Madison. I know we want to talk about a little Madison and Ange Postecoglou moment at the end of the game. We're going to get to that, right? But there's a lot more that goes, I think, into or behind the conversation around Madison and his competition with Kulusevski right now. But yeah, subs quick. And I want to kind of take the sub conversation into the on-field decision-making or in-game, decision-making for Ange Postecoglou and the way that game flipped. But if I'm not mistaken, first we see Basuma come on for Bentancur.
Yeah, 56.
Yeah, and then shortly after, Richarlison comes on for Son. We'll also talk about Son's reaction to getting substituted here in the near future. Davies comes in for Romero, It sounds like Christian Romero is facing fatigue, and there's not a serious injury here, but we never know. No manager is going to come out and spill the beans when you have a guy that an entire team may build a game plan around, right, in Romero. So we'll see. And then the fifth and final sub would be Madison for Richarlison. So it's challenging for Richarlison probably to come on as a substitute and then get subbed off for Madison, but I'm sure he understands, not only does he have no choice, he's not the manager, right, but understands that it was important for Madison to get minutes, and it obviously paid off. But like I said, the in-game management for Mange, it's really improving. I think it's something that we've been critical of for sure on this show, without a doubt. But those subs do make an impact. We come out in the second half, as Robbie talked about, kind of a tale of two halves here. We come out and absolutely lay down the hammer in the second half, and substitutes are always going to play an impact in something like that happening. So, Max, my question for you is your mind changing with Ange at all in terms to his in-game management? Is he improving, or are these just a couple of lucky hits?
I don't know. I mean, it's so hard to say off this game because I just think that regardless, after, like Kulu said it in his press conference, we're getting one goal and then we're going to win. If we get one goal, we're going to win. It kind of felt like once we scored that, the result was decided. I'm not prepared to sit here and say that Basuma and Richarlison did anything that Bentz and Sonny weren't doing. I feel like if they had stayed on, like barring like fitness restrictions or anything else, like it would have been the same result with those two players in those positions. But nonetheless, it's important to get rotation. I understand the concern not wanting to get Sonny injured again. So I think the Ange is doing better, like watching out for his players, like trying to rotate the squad a bit more, kind of getting used to having multiple games a week. So I will commend him for that. As for this game specifically, I don't think like tactically he did anything like super crazy in terms of substitutes, but I was pretty shocked when Sonny came off, but now we know it's because of injury and whatnot. And then I thought Richarlison did good in his cameo. And now I wonder, was Madison planned to come on at all, or is that why he was upset? Or I mean, not upset. Is that why they had a kind of a interesting interaction, because he did sub on for a previous sub? So I think I'd be comfortable saying he's improving, but I don't think it was like his subs were that influential in the result.
We were going to talk ratings. We're going to get to that in a second, because I want to take the opportunity to talk about two things that just came up in the substitute conversation, and that's Sonny being subbed off and his reaction to that, and then Ange and Madison having a bit of a moment at the end of the match. Who knows what they were talking about, right? But it plays into the conversation about Madison and the layers to the Madison and Kulusevski of it all. So, Robbie, I'm going to come to you. This is a new segment here on Emerald and Lilywhite called the Vibe Check, where we're just going to check in on the vibe of the squad. It's an important conversation, right? How are things feeling in the locker room? What's the temperature? So I'm coming to you. Let's talk about first of all, Sonny reacting poorly, we could say, or unfavorably to being subbed off. What'd you make of that?
Yeah, I think in the moment it looked worse, and the announcers were sort of making a meal of it too. Like they were like, "Oh boy," like just like commenting on it. But like, he is the captain of the club. He is a competitor. He wants to be in the game. It was, unfortunate timing that he assisted that goal right before he got taken off. So a lot of people were like, "Whoa, we just got the momentum, and now we're taking him off." And from all I heard, I did listen to my favorite other Spurs podcast this morning, which is the Alistair Gold and Rob Guest from London, football.london. And they mentioned like all the footage they saw of Sonny after the game, walking through the tunnel, was him smiling, sticking his tongue out, being happy, all that stuff. And then they also made the point that last time Sonny came back from his injury, I think it was West Ham, right, where he hurt himself at like the 62nd minute again, or like re-aggravated whatever he was coming back from. So him getting pulled at about the 60th minute makes a lot of sense to me, of like, hey, last time he came back. He got hurt after 60 minutes, so let's not let him do that again. So, yeah, I think in the moment it felt kind of strange, but kind of everything coming together at the end, it was like, okay, this was all pretty sensical. And perhaps I think they were suggesting on the other podcast that maybe this was the game plan from the start, that like Sonny knew this was going to happen. But then, yeah, it was just unfortunate that right when he assisted that goal was about the time mark where he needed to get taken off. But I think everything's great there. Everything's fine. The Madison one, again, I don't know if we live in the modern age where everyone zooms in on these camera shots and these things. We'll never really know what is actually happening, but it is sort of just a weird interaction where Ange at the end of the game runs up to Madison, tries to give him this big hug, shout in his ear, give him a ring around the neck, like, you did it, you're awesome. See, this is what I'm talking about. One of those coach talks. And we can't really tell, but it doesn't look like James is really engaging with that or like wanting, like he's not pushing Ange off, but he's kind of just like, okay, thanks, like, okay, I'm moving on now. So I don't know if he is bummed, but again, he is a competitor. He is one of the most senior leaders on this team. He's allowed to be upset. He's allowed to be whatever. But again, this is like the turning point for this club, I think, is as long as these decisions work, you can't really be mad, right? Like Madison came on and scored a goal. Son came off. We still won. Son did not get hurt. The discussion is totally different if we take Son off and then we concede 2 goals immediately or something like that happens. So I don't know. My opinion is none of these things are a big deal, but it is interesting to just take a look at. But both of these guys are leaders, and both of these were the correct decisions when all was said and done. So I think things are good in that regard.
Yeah. Max, what do you think?
Yeah, I have a quote directly from Postecoglou. He was never going to play more than 50 on Sonny. He was never going to play more than 55 minutes. Last time he came back from injury, he got to the 60-minute mark and got injured again. So, put it pretty bluntly, I agree with Robbie. Son wants to be in the game. He's a competitor. He made his mark on the game with an absolute stunning assist, and we ended up winning. So, I think it's a win-win. And then with Sonny, I think it's a bit different. He has the maturity that maybe I think James is lacking a little bit, just like in showing after the game. All that he cares about is that Spurs win, right? That I think Son knows that, but I also think he does have the benefit of the job security, which James doesn't have right now. So yeah. I think that could be contributing to what's going on there. But I think James, he's just got to understand that this is what's happening. We play players based on form, and Sar and Kulusevski are in the form of their lives right now. So
yeah,
the hard part about it is that it's not like Madison was playing bad. Like, I think he's been good throughout this entire season. So it's like kind of a what more can I do situation, which is obviously frustrating for any player, but it's just the reality of it. And honestly, we just have an embarrassment of riches in those 8 positions. So
yeah.
That's just the gist of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. I think I'm starting to feel that Madison is more so just competing with Kulusevski and not as much Sar for minutes. I don't always like what I've seen from the Kulusevski Madison pairing, right? It can be great or it's awful, and there's really no in between with those two as those dual 8s. So Sar is becoming increasingly important in my opinion. I think Sar has to play whenever he's fit, right? And because of that, I do believe Madison's competing more directly with Kulusevski than he is with Sar for minutes, and that's a tough place to be, like you said, because Kulusevski is just on fire right now, and Madison could continue to do well and continue to contribute to goals, but Kulusevski's undroppable right now, and again, that's tough, but it's a wonderful thing for the club. Maybe not as much James Madison, but I also think James is a consummate professional and will find a way to get through this and figure it out and continue to contribute to the team that he's a captain of. But more to come. And then the last thing I'll say, I guess, is you can never fault, as you both have alluded to or said, you can never fault a professional athlete for being pissed that they're not playing. If they're if they're comfortable with not playing, that's a much bigger problem in my opinion. So, whatever. It kind of is what it is. Let's talk ratings before we move on to Galatasaray. Max, going to let you carry the load here. But walk me through the 11 and any subs you feel made a significant enough impact to rate.
Yeah, so I'll start it off as always with Vicario. I gave him a 6. Like, it's just on a corner again. He kind of got bullied and we conceded. So that's that. Dragic 8, great performance again. Held it down for the entire game. Romero, I thought was good before he came off, 7, and then his counterpart who came on for him, Davies, also a 7. And then why don't I just give 7s to the whole back line because I thought they were all really solid yesterday. So 7s all around, Udogie and Poro. Collect those there. Bentancur, I thought was just okay. Didn't see much from him. He kind of got hooked relatively early. Slid him a 6. Basuma, I thought was better, livelier in that second half. So I have a 7 for Bis. And then moving on to Madison as a substitute, I gave him a 7 just because he bagged the goal. Usually in only 8 minutes, I wouldn't rate him, but he did get the goal there. Sar and Kulusevski, both class. I gave him both 8s. Sonny in his limited minutes, not as much as he normally plays, I gave him a 7 because what an assist from him. Solanke bagged 2 goals. Have to give him a 9. He was so good yesterday. Absolutely sublime finishing. And then Richarlison, I thought had his best cameo this season and getting an assist. I gave him a 7, but now it's back to the medical tent for him. And then Johnson, again, getting a goal I thought was really solid, and I gave him a 7. So a lot of 7s because we had a couple standouts, Solanke being the main one. But I think everyone else, it was just a really solid, comprehensive matchup. I can't really point to a lot of bad performances, which I think is what happens when you don't have Timo Werner in the starting lineup. So, yeah.
Oh, man, Timo's catching strays from that. No, I think it's all great. Solanke, obviously, man of the match, but as you said, it's really hard to rate anybody lower than a 7 bar a couple. So fantastic performance from the lads and from Ange from top to bottom. Super stoked to see it. Spurs now sit 2 points behind Arsenal in the Premier League table, if anybody's keeping track. Had we beat, and I hate saying this, but I will, had we beat Palace, we'd be in 3rd place right now.
And Brighton, dude.
Yeah. So, we've cost ourselves points, but we've also taken points. And when you look at the overall picture and where we sit in the table, I think there's plenty of reason to think that we're trending upwards. But let's talk now about Thursday. We traveled to Turkey, the cup match. We've kind of talked about it on the show. We're all in on the cups right now, a couple of them specifically in the League Cup and Europa League. And we've got a big one on Thursday, as I said, away to Galatasaray. Going to be a challenging match, not only because they're a good team who, if anyone hasn't been keeping track, Victor Osimhen now starts up top for Galatasaray after Napoli deemed him surplus to requirements, and specifically our boy Antonio Conte. But Osimhen is now down in Turkey playing for Galatasaray. Mario Icardi is there. We'll get to see our boy Dav Sanchez at the back, which will be nice. But they're a good squad. But off the field too, they're going to pose a challenge. Their fan base is rowdy. It's a difficult place to go and play. Smoke, flares, you name it. Guys are going to have to stay really drilled in mentally in a tough place to play. So, Robbie, I'll come to you. What do you make of this upcoming trip? And we'll talk more, stick with the vibes with you. When you look at the stadium and the atmosphere that we're walking into, do you have any concerns?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, other than that one tweet I shared with you guys in the group chat, I don't have almost any experience of Galatasaray's playing experience, but looks like they're a flare and fire kind of stadium, smoke, one of those type of vibes. I do think what's going to be really interesting is this is kind of where we're gonna find out perhaps what the club's priority is, because we do have Ipswich on Sunday, which, number one, another winless club and another game before an international break. So we as Tottenham fans should be absolutely terrified of this game, because anything can happen. But we also will find out, like, Galatasaray is in 5th in the standings in the Europa League, Tottenham in 2nd. And how strong are we going to go in our lineup for this match? I think that's going to tell us a lot about what we're planning. I think, and, maybe not, but I think, again, the podcast I listened to earlier today suggested almost all youth players to play. Like, let's just make this an entire youth game. Send all the youngsters out. They were saying Lancashire up top is who they expect. Mikey Moore on a wing and Timo on a wing is kind of what they were expecting. And then, Gray at one of the back positions. I don't know if it's right or left back. That would make more sense for him. And then obviously, like, Davis and Dragishin are probably our only center backs anyway available for that game. But maybe that means Bergvall is going to get some playing time in there too. I don't know. And maybe we go strong in the midfield and kind of softer everywhere else. But yeah, I think I'll be curious to see how strong of a lineup we go, because one, are we going to prioritize this game because we know Ipswich is going to be easy, but we also know that game is never easy for Tottenham going into an international break. So I don't know. I'm very curious to see on that. But yeah, so I think that to me is going to tell me a lot about what we're prioritizing based on how strong we go on that lineup.
I'll tell you what, if they do go Lancashire, Mikey Moore, Timo Werner up top, I will not be happy. I want us to come out super strong in this match. I frankly think this is our toughest match. I shouldn't even say frankly. It's obviously our toughest match if you look at our Europa League fixtures. Max, what's your take? Do you think we'll go strong on this? Who do you expect to feature?
Yeah, so I currently have Lancashire and Moore slotted into the lineup that I was going to put out for this game. It just seems like that's what it's going to have to be. Like, Solanke's played the last 3 matches pretty much the entire time, and then Richarlison just gets hurt after a 20-minute stint yet again. Odebear is hurt again, so we can't use either of them after they were just both out for 6 weeks. Get back, get tops 100 minutes out of Richarlison and tops 5 minutes out of Wilson Odebear before they're both back in the physician's office. So I had Lancashire and Moore and Hyunmin Son, which might be a surprise because we just need someone else up there that can do a job. International break is coming up, like Robbie said, so I think like he can rotate against Ipswich. Like, Ipswich is so bad. They're much worse team than Galatasaray, in my opinion. And then in the midfield, I got Basuma. I thought he was good, really good yesterday. I got Madison and then Bergvall. But I would be cool with seeing like Kudler Sar play if Ange wanted them to, but they have also had a lot of minutes of them on them. And then I think backline, it's like no choice for the center backs. I think it'll be Radu and Davies. And then I have Poro because, dude, Udogie is literally getting run into the ground. And then Archie Gray at left back because we don't have any options at all there. So that's what I got.
Jets fans, I guess maybe he's not fit anyways, right?
He can't play Europa League.
Yeah. Always got to take a second to take a jab at the fact that
it's so dumb.
On Thursday. I mean, I know I said I'd be upset, but I also realized that there is no Richarlison. Son's coming back from some time off, and we just talked about the minutes that Ange is looking to manage with Sonny. You don't have the option of really giving Solanke a go with all the – I mean, you do, but ideally you don't with all the minutes he's put on his leg. So it could very well be, that front three, but I just am concerned that we maybe don't get a result if that's the case, and I shouldn't say that on the Spurs spot. I should always be behind the boys in the shirt, but it'd be a tough result to get with such a young squad. Again, you maybe have no choice, but does bleed into what Robbie said earlier too about seeing what we're prioritizing as a club come Thursday with the roll into Sunday. We've talked a lot about, using the league as progression and using the cup as opportunities to get results and go after things and win things now. And just talked a lot about how he wins trophies in his second season, and we have opportunities to, I shouldn't say a lot. He did say that once, right?
He's just always talking about it.
Yeah, he's always talking about it nonstop. But he said that one time. And of course,
he definitely does not regret saying that.
No, not at all, right? The English media hasn't eaten that up
because he's doubling down every week. So
yeah, for sure. No, honestly though, I do think we have a chance to win it. And if I'm Ange, I'm looking at what winning something like the Europa League could do. Now you can, fight for a draw in Istanbul and still be very confident that you get a top 8 position. So I'm not saying this is an absolute must win, but we do need to go down and make a statement. And going into Istanbul and getting a result away at Galatasaray would be certainly a statement if you want to tell the rest of the Europa League field that we're here to win the thing. So I'm really excited to see what we come out with, but injuries leave you